I was sitting alone in my tiny Seattle apartment, a bowl of spaghetti gone stone cold on the kitchen counter. It was deep into the night. The wall clock had already ticked past 11, and the rain outside was hammering the windows like it wanted to drown the whole city. My name is Gunnar Maddox, 32 years old, bodyguard for a big private security firm. I'm used to late shifts and eating dinner by myself to the sound of wind and distant traffic. But tonight felt different. Something in the air made my pulse kick harder, the way it does right before everything goes sideways. I just picked up my fork when the knock came, frantic, desperate, like someone running from hell itself. I frowned and set the fork down. Who the hell shows up at this hour? I don't have many friends, and none of them would come knocking in a storm. I wiped my mouth, walked to the door, and, habit, let my hand brush the grip of the pistol tucked in my waistband. "Who is it?" I called. Only rain answered. Then the knock came again, weaker, pleading. I slid the chain, cracked the door, and my heart stopped. Standing on the wet porch, shivering like a half-drowned stray, was Amara, my twin sister. She was curled in on herself, long black hair plastered to her face, clothes soaked through, and her face. Jesus Christ, her face was purpled with bruises, one eye swollen shut, lips split and bleeding. Amara Maddox, the gentle preschool teacher I would die for, looked like she'd just crawled out of a nightmare. "Amara? What the hell?" I didn't wait for an answer. Pain twisted in my chest so hard I couldn't breathe. I lunged forward, pulled her inside, and wrapped her trembling body in my arms. Rainwater dripped from her onto the floor. I didn't care. Come in," I whispered, voice cracking. I slammed the door, locked it, and led her to the living room. She was shaking uncontrollably, teeth chattering, skin ice cold. I ran to the bedroom, grabbed the thickest wool blanket I owned, wrapped it around her, then snatched a towel and gently dried her face. "You're freezing." "I'm turning the heat on." I cranked the dial. The heater rumbled to life and started pushing warm air into the room. But I knew no amount of heat could touch whatever was tearing her apart inside. She collapsed onto the couch, still shaking like a leaf. Her eyes stared at nothing, clinging to the last threads of sanity. I dashed to the kitchen, reheated the leftover chicken soup I'd made earlier, simple but hot, and brought it to her. "Eat, sweetheart. Warm up." I set the bowl and spoon in front of her. She stared at it for a second, then attacked it like she hadn't eaten in days. Spoonfuls so fast broth spilled down her chin. She didn't care. Seeing her like that broke something in me. My Amara, the girl who laughed with toddlers all day, now looked like a ghost. I sat beside her, gently rubbing her back, waiting. Slowly the warmth reached her. The violent shivering eased. She set the spoon down, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Thank you, Gunnar," she whispered, voice raw. I couldn't wait any longer. "Amara, what happened? Why are you here in the middle of the night? And your face? Who did this to you?" My voice shook. Rage was already boiling up. She looked at me, eyes red and swollen, and the sobs started. Choked, broken. It was Zachary, my husband. He hit me. The words cut straight into my heart. Zachary Walker, the piece of shit she married 2 years ago. I still remember their wedding day. Her radiant in white, him with his polite smile, promising to take care of her forever. And now this. "He hit you? Why? Tell me everything." I took her hands, squeezing, fighting to stay calm. Between sobs, the story came in fragments, as if she was afraid the walls could hear. "We fought tonight. He got angry. He hit me. I panicked and ran. I didn't know where else to go. I just ran to you." Every word was a hammer blow. I pictured her running through the storm, alone, terrified, driving hours from Tacoma to Seattle. Why didn't she call me? How long had she been enduring this? Rage exploded inside me, white hot. That bastard! I'm going to Tacoma right now. I'm going to break him in half. I shot to my feet, fists clenched, blood roaring in my ears. But even exhausted, Amara grabbed my arm and pulled me back. "No! Please, Gunnar, don't. If this gets out, the walkers will come after me. They'll kill me." Terror filled her eyes, tears streaming again. "They have money, connections. I'm so scared." Her words doused the fire and replaced it with a deeper, colder pain. I looked at my twin, the person I'd shared every secret and every joy with since the womb. We grew up in an ordinary family, parents who worked hard, but we always had each other. And now she was this afraid. I squeezed her hands, swallowing the fury clawing at my throat. Okay, I won't go anywhere. I'm staying right here with you. I set her up in my bed, clean sheets, warm blankets. Sleep, we'll figure everything out tomorrow. She nodded, utterly spent, and fell asleep almost instantly. I made up the couch for myself, lay down and stared at the ceiling. I didn't sleep that night. Anger smoldered, mixing with images I couldn't shake. Amara bruised and bleeding, running in the rain. Zachary's smug face. Every time she cried out in her sleep, I rushed in, stroked her hair, whispered, "I'm here. You're safe." But inside me, a storm was building. I knew from this night on everything would change. I wasn't going to let anyone hurt her again. Never. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the curtains, I woke early, brewed coffee, and prepared a simple breakfast. Sunny side up eggs and toast. The meal Amara had loved since childhood. I hoped a warm, comforting meal would calm her, convince her to stay with me. But when she woke, her face still mottled with bruises and her eyes red from crying all night. She looked at me with a desperation that twisted my gut. "Gunnar, I have to go back to the Walker house," she said, her voice trembling. I shook my head, pleading with everything I had. "Don't go, Amara. Stay here with me. I'll protect you. We can call the police, get a lawyer. Anything. Don't go back to that hell." I told her everything I'd been thinking all night, plans to take her far away, to start a new life. But she shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You don't understand. If I don't go back, he'll come looking. He'll hurt you. He'll hurt the whole family. Please, Gunnar, just take me home." The desperation in her eyes, the way she clutched my hand like it was her last lifeline, forced me to give in. My stomach churned with dread, as if I were pushing her straight into a lion's den, but I didn't want to force her, didn't want to scare her more. "All right, I'll take you. But remember, anytime, day or night, you call me and I'm there." We got in the car and drove to Tacoma in heavy silence. On the way, I tried to talk, to dredge up happy childhood memories. The time we snuck out to fish in the river, or those nights we watched horror movies and clung to each other in terror. Amara managed a weak smile, but her eyes stayed distant, as if she were steeling herself for the nightmare ahead. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, fighting the rage. Why was life so unfair? Amara, the gentle girl who'd always dreamed of a happy family, was now trapped in a marriage from hell. I blamed myself. Why hadn't I seen it sooner? Why hadn't I stepped in the first time she mentioned their arguments? When we pulled up to the Walkers' upscale suburban house, I parked at the curb, heart pounding. The place looked perfect, like something out of a real estate magazine. Manicured lawn, white picket fence, windows gleaming in the sun. But I knew what lay behind that facade. We walked inside and the atmosphere was eerily normal, as if nothing had happened. Zachary Walker, the 34-year-old IT engineer with his polished, fake nice exterior, neat hair, crisp shirt, was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee like he had all the time in the world. He looked up, flashed a thin smile as if Amara had just stepped out for a morning walk instead of fleeing from him the night before. "Amara, you're back?" "I was so worried," he said, his voice syrupy sweet. Next to him sat Fiona Walker, his 27-year-old sister, who was staying with them. She was a spoiled princess type, curled hair, bright red nails, lounging with her phone, giggling at some video. "Oh look, big sis is home," she chirped, not even glancing up. The house smelled of fresh coffee and soft radio music, the picture of domestic bliss. But I saw through the lie. No trace of last night's violence, no apology, just a perfect mask. When they saw Amara walk in with me, both Zachary and Fiona froze for a split second, a flicker I caught like they were recalculating. Then instantly they switched to concern. Zachary stood, stepping closer, eyes wide with mock surprise. My God, what happened to your face? Did you have an accident? He asked, voice dripping with worry. Fiona dropped her phone, sidled up to Amara, and lightly touched her shoulder. Sis, you look cold. Want me to make you some hot tea? She smiled, but it was stiff, her eyes darting, gauging our reactions. It was all a rehearsed performance, sweet words, caring gestures, but hollow. I stood there watching, rage simmering. What kind of game were they playing? Pretending last night never happened, that Amara's bruises were from a fall down the stairs. I couldn't take the hypocrisy anymore. I stepped forward, planting myself in front of Zachary, every muscle coiled. You hit my sister, didn't you? How dare you do this to her? I growled. Zachary took a step back but kept his polite mask, hands raised in denial. Gunner, you've got it all wrong. We just had a little argument. Nothing serious. Amara tends to overreact. He smiled, that fake smile that made me want to put my fist through his face. Fiona stood behind him, arms crossed, looking Amara up and down with contempt, as if my sister were trash that had dirtied their pristine floor. Yeah, sis is just too sensitive. Women, right? She sneered. Amara panicked, grabbing my arm, whispering, Gunner, stop. Just go. I'm fine. Her eyes were wide with fear, as if she dreaded what would happen if this blew up. I caught Zachary's glance. He clenched his jaw, eyes narrowing, shooting Amara a cold, silent warning. Shut up or else. My heart hammered, rage surging, but for her sake, I forced it down. I didn't want to put her in more danger right now. Before leaving, I looked at my sister for a long moment, squeezing her hand hard. Take care of yourself. Call me the second anything happens. I swear I'll be there. She nodded, eyes brimming with tears. I turned and walked out, but my gut was screaming with dread. On the drive back to Seattle, I couldn't stop replaying the scene. The Walker house looked too perfect from the outside, ornate walls, manicured gardens, glittering chandeliers, but inside, it was a meticulously disguised hell. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles blanched, picturing Amara left alone there, facing Zachary and Fiona. Why did she choose to go back? Why wouldn't she let me protect her? The questions spun in my head, tangled with childhood memories. We'd promised to always stand together, inseparable twins. Now she was imprisoned in that marriage, and I felt like a failure. Back in my apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, mind in chaos. I called her immediately, but the phone rang endlessly. The bad feeling grew stronger, like a storm rolling in. That night, just as I drifted off on the couch, my phone buzzed violently. Amara's name lit the screen. I bolted upright, heart racing, and answered, Amara? How are you? But instead of her usual voice, I heard only choked sobs. The sound froze me like ice water down my spine. Gig Gunner, she whimpered, voice breaking. I clutched the phone, fighting panic. Calm down, tell me what happened. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Between gasps, she began, voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. You made everything worse. Right after you left Zachary. He insulted me, took it all out on me. He called me a traitor, a filthy bitch, and then he hit me again. Each word cut deeper. I pictured it. Zachary with his fake morning smile, now a monster, fists flying at my sister. He hit you? Again? Jesus, are you okay? I'm coming right now, I shouted, but she cut me off. No, and Fiona. She stood there, humiliating me, pouring fuel on the fire. She said I was at fault, a worthless woman who deserved it. They tormented me together like I was a criminal. I sank to the floor, back against the wall, the world collapsing. Every word carved into me, freezing my blood. I was stunned. Because of me, she suffered more. Because I confronted Zachary, she paid the price. Guilt surged, a heavy stone in my chest. I'm sorry, I didn't think. I just wanted to protect you. My voice cracked. Tears rolled down my face without me noticing. I felt powerless. a bodyguard who'd failed the most important job of his life. But I clung to hope, trying to convince her. Listen, leave. Come live with me. We'll start over. I won't let him touch you again. I swear. Silence. Then her voice laced with terror. No, Gunner, I can't. I don't want this to blow up. If I leave, they'll find me. They'll hurt me, hurt you. I'm so scared. The desperation in her tone choked me. My sister, once strong and joyful, was now a broken bird, too afraid to leave the cage. I racked my brain. Then an idea struck. Then, install hidden cameras. I'll help. If anything happens, I'll intervene. You'll have proof and you'll be safer. But she refused sharply, voice rising in panic. No. If they find out, they'll kill me. Stop pushing me. The call ended in helpless silence. I heard her crying. Then the line went dead. I sat staring at the dark screen, heart like lead. The following days I lived in constant agitation, angry, anxious, barely eating or sleeping. Every morning I thought of Amara, wondering if she was being hurt again. I called her repeatedly, at noon, late at night. But she answered vaguely, I'm fine, or busy, talk later. Sometimes she didn't pick up at all, letting it ring out. Each time my stomach knotted, imagining her watched, controlled. I went to work like a robot, guarding clients, but my mind was only on her. Colleagues asked what was wrong. I shook my head. How could I explain that my sister was being abused and I was powerless to stop it? I couldn't stand watching her suffer from afar anymore. I decided to dig deeper myself. I remembered something Amara had mentioned months ago casually. Zachary once got physical with an ex-girlfriend. I'd brushed it off then, but now it felt like a warning. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop and started searching. First, public records, court websites, local Tacoma forums, legal archives. I typed *Zachary Walker* with keywords lawsuit and assault. The results were chilling. 2 civil lawsuits accused Zachary of sexual harassment, stalking, and threatening 2 different women years earlier. One from 2018. A former co-worker claimed he sent threatening messages and followed her home. Another in 2020. A woman he met on a dating app accused him of sexual assault and death threats if she ended things. Both cases settled out of court, compensation undisclosed. But local forum comments whispered that the Walkers used money to silence victims, that Greg and Deborah, his church influential parents, intervened. I dug deeper into police reports. Then I found it. A detailed domestic violence report. Zachary choked an ex until she was hospitalized for oxygen deprivation. The report described bruising around the neck, bloodshot eyes, and her statement that he screamed, "Die, you bitch!" in rage. But the case closed abnormally fast weeks later for lack of evidence. On an anonymous forum, users muttered, "Walkers fixed it. Private lawyers. Church money." My hands shook, cold sweat breaking out. This wasn't a one-time act. Zachary was a repeat offender, shielded by wealth and connections, and now Amara was the next victim in this horrific cycle. I slammed the laptop shut, breathing hard, resolve hardening. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to act. I decided to go to our parents, hoping they'd stand with me to protect Amara and convince her to end this hellish marriage. I knew they weren't the confrontational type, but they were her parents. They had to love their daughter. I drove to the old house on the outskirts of Seattle where we grew up, a small place with peeling white paint, a cluttered yard dotted with Mom's flower bushes. It was full of memories. Family dinners, Dad's corny jokes, Mom singing us to sleep. Now it was just a worn-out shell. My father, Gage Maddox, 62, was a low-paid warehouse worker at a small factory he'd been with since his youth. Thin, silver-haired, always in faded t-shirts and worn jeans. My mother, Mary Maddox, 60, worked part-time at the neighborhood grocery store, her tired smile framed by calloused hands. Both were the quiet, shrink-from-conflict type. They avoided trouble, lived small, just wanted peace. I remembered from childhood, They never fought loudly, but they never stood up for anyone either. They taught us to live kindly, but now I saw it was just avoidance. I knocked, heart heavy. Mom opened the door, eyes lighting up. "Gunner, you're here? Come in, dinner's almost ready." Dad sat on the couch, TV volume low, greeting me with a faint smile. We sat at the table, the familiar smell of stew filling the air. I forced down a few bites but couldn't swallow. "Mom, Dad, I have something important to tell you." I told them everything. The night Amara showed up soaked and bruised, Zachary beating her, her sobbing phone calls, and now the records I'd found online, old lawsuits, assault reports. I laid it all out, voice shaking with anger and fear. Zachary is a repeat offender. He nearly killed an ex by choking her. Amara is in danger. We have to get her out, convince her to divorce, call the police. When I finished, silence hung like lead. Dad fidgeted, avoiding my eyes, turning his water glass in circles. Mom stared at the cracked wooden floor as if answers hid in the gaps. I waited for outrage, for Dad to slam the table, for Mom to cry and say, "I'll call Amara right now." But nothing. Instead of fury or protection, they sighed and brushed it off. Dad spoke first, voice flat. "Every couple argues, son. Amara, she's too sensitive, blows things out of proportion." Mom nodded. "That's right. Your father and I fought too, but we got through it." I was stunned, like I'd been slapped. "Argue. You call beating someone until they're hospitalized. Arguing. Amara ran to my place in the middle of a storm, face black and blue. That's not sensitivity. That's abuse," I shouted, but Dad just shook his head. Mom whispered her fear. "Son, if we make a scene, the neighbors will talk. What will the relatives say? We've always kept things quiet." Dad piled on. "Amara's married now. She has to learn to deal with it. Can't keep running to family. She's grown. Let her handle it." My chest tightened. Deal with it. That's the advice for a daughter being beaten. I brought up exposing the abuse. Police, lawyer, public records. But they recoiled. Dad stood, voice rising for the first time. "No. Don't. We'll be shamed. Relatives will gossip. The Walkers will retaliate. They have money, power." Mom cried, clutching my hand. "Don't. I'm scared. If Amara just endures, it'll be fine." Their indifference and weakness hit me like another slap. The people who raised us, who bandaged our scraped knees, now chose reputation over their daughter's life? Anger and disappointment crashed over me like a tidal wave. I argued fiercely, my voice echoing in the small house. "You're killing Amara. If she dies, will you sleep easy? Zachary is a potential murderer. Why won't you protect your own child?" Dad's face flushed. "Shut up. What do you know about how the world works?" Mom sobbed, repeating, "Don't make it bigger." I couldn't believe they were siding with silence over their daughter's safety. These were my parents, the ones who held us when we cried over a bike fall, now turning away from real pain. I shot to my feet, chair clattering. "Fine, I'm done. If you won't help, I'll do it myself." I stormed out in despair, heart crushed as I realized my parents had completely lost the ability to protect Amara. The door slammed behind me, Mom's cries echoing, but I didn't look back. On the drive home, tears streamed down my face. Memories flooded in. Dad teaching me to fish, Mom sewing Amara's clothes. Now it was all broken. I understood. From this moment, I was Amara's only real family. And I would protect her at any cost, even if it meant fighting the world. Back home, I sat in the dark, thinking. My parents were weak. But I wasn't. I'd hire a private investigator. Gather evidence. "Amara, I'm coming." The fight had just begun. Back at my Seattle apartment, night had fallen hard, rain drumming on the roof. I collapsed onto the couch, mind a tangled mess. Anger at my parents still smoldered, but I couldn't let it take over. Amara was counting on me. I opened my laptop and searched for private investigators in the Tacoma, Seattle area. Not movie-style detectives, but real ones who tracked people and gathered evidence for divorces or fraud. After hours of reviews and emails, I picked Jack Harlan, a retired cop, 55, with 20 years in investigations. I called immediately, voice urgent. I need someone followed. He's abusing my sister. I need proof. Jack listened, agreed to meet tomorrow morning at a neutral coffee shop. I dozed off, but sleep was fitful, haunted by nightmares of Amara being hit, her cries echoing. The next morning, I met Jack at a roadside cafe. He was tall, silver-haired, eyes sharp as knives in an old leather jacket. We sat in a corner. I told him everything. Amara's soaked, bruised arrival, Zachary's assaults, the online records, my parents' indifference. Jack took notes, no judgment. I'll tail Zachary Walker. Need details. Address, work schedule, vehicles. I gave him everything, suburban Tacoma house, IT company. Jack quoted a price, not cheap, but I paid the deposit through an app. Daily updates if anything breaks. But remember, legal surveillance only, no privacy violations. I nodded, heart torn between hope and dread. This was the first real step. No more helpless calls or web searches. Waiting for the first report felt endless. I went to work on autopilot, guarding clients, but my mind was in Tacoma. Every night I called Amara. She answered briefly, voice exhausted. I'm fine, don't worry. I knew she was hiding. Zachary probably monitoring her phone. I remembered protecting her as kids. When she was bullied, I fought the boy, got punished, but she hugged me, crying thanks. Now the bully was her husband, and I couldn't just punch him. Adult life was messier. Evidence, plans. A few days later, my phone buzzed. Email from Jack. First report. Files attached. I opened it, pulse racing. Details. Zachary had a young mistress in Tacoma, Lila Thompson, 25, bartender at a local dive. They met a year ago while Amara was busy teaching. Jack tracked Zachary to Lila's apartment multiple times, photos of him leaving angry. Worse, Layla was regularly beaten. Bruises on arms and legs, split lips, never reported. Jack interviewed anonymous neighbors. She cries at night. Once screamed in pain, but she's terrified of the walkers, money, lawyers. Reading it, my blood boiled. Lila, young like Amara, trapped in the same cycle. I didn't wait. I asked Jack for Lila's address. He sent it, warning, careful, Gunner, don't blow cover. That afternoon I drove to Tacoma, parked outside her rundown apartment in a poor neighborhood. Lila opened the door, wary, beautiful, blonde, but weary, a faint scar on her cheek. I'm Gunner Maddox, Amara's brother. I know about Zachary. She hesitated, then let me in, voice trembling. You know, he's a devil. We sat at her cramped kitchen table. She told me everything. Same pattern as Amara. Sweet at first, then controlling, stalking, beating. He'd get jealous over nothing, hit me for texts from friends. Once he choked me, I thought I'd die. But I didn't report it. He said his family would hire people to hurt me. Tears rolled down her face. I took her hand, comforting her. When I told her about Amara, she gasped. God, she's going through it too. I'll testify if it goes legal. I don't want anyone else to suffer like this. Her words were the first real spark of hope. I thanked her, promised protection, and left, resolve stronger. Back home, I called Jack. Dig deeper on the Walker family. He agreed. Days later, the next report, Zachary's parents, Greg and Deborah Walker, board members of St. Mary's Cathedral, a major church raising millions in charity yearly. But Jack uncovered embezzlement, fake invoices, funds diverted to personal accounts, hundreds of thousands siphoned from donations to cover Greg's gambling debts, and Deborah's luxury spending. Jack had photos of documents from an anonymous source and internal church emails whispering about missing funds. This is the kill shot, Jack said over the phone. If it leaks, their reputation collapses. I compiled everything. Jack's reports, online records, Lila's statement, embezzlement files. into a secure folder backed up to the cloud. My heart raced with excitement and fear. This was the way to free Amara and get justice. I pictured her free, smiling again, Zachary in jail, the walkers ruined. But danger loomed. If they found out, they'd strike back. I called Amara, whispering, "I have proof. Leave him." But she was terrified. "Gunnar, don't. I'm not ready." I stayed patient, but time was running out. Those days dragged on like torture. I lived in waiting. Every phone ring twisted my gut. Amara was still there in that house, and I knew he could snap at any moment. I checked Jack's emails hourly like an addict. Then one weekend evening, I'd just finished a grueling shift, body exhausted, trudging to my car in the cold drizzle. My phone buzzed nonstop in my jacket pocket, not one message, but a chain. From Jack. The first said only, "Urgent, watch video now. Situation critical." My heart sank. I dove into the car, slammed the door, hands shaking as I opened the attachment. The phone screen glowed in the dark cabin. I hit play. The first video was from a hidden camera Jack had placed on the street, aimed straight through the walker's large, curtainless dining room window. Warm yellow light spilled out. The table was set like a magazine spread. Crisp white tablecloth, gleaming silver cutlery, red wine shimmering in crystal glasses. Greg and Deborah sat at the heads of the table, Greg laughing loudly about church stories, Deborah nodding with her glass raised. Fiona on one side showing off her new phone, cackling shrilly. Zachary on the other, clapping his dad on the back like the perfect son. And Amara, my sister, scurrying in and out like a servant carrying steaming platters, refilling wine, wiping their mouths. Her head bowed, smile forced and crooked when Deborah snapped, "Hurry up." I watched, guts boiling. The scene was nauseatingly fake, like a perfect family from a movie, but I knew what she was enduring. Then the second video started. My blood turned to ice. Deborah shot to her feet, face flushed with wine, pointing at Amara as she entered with a hot platter of roast. "What the hell is wrong with you, moving like a snail? Useless!" Her voice pierced the room. Without warning, she flung the entire scalding dish straight into Amara's face. Boiling tomato sauce, chunks of meat, splattered across her skin. Amara screamed. A gut-wrenching cry of pain, dropped the plate, which shattered on the floor, clutched her face, stumbled back, and collapsed onto the cold stone. Fiona burst into delighted laughter, clapping. "Serves her right. Too slow, sister-in-law." Her eyes gleamed with sick pleasure like she was watching a fun show. Zachary sat frozen at first, eyes cold as he watched Amara writhe. Then he exploded upright, chair crashing backward. "You worthless bitch! You trying to embarrass me in front of my parents." He charged like a beast, kicked her hard in the stomach. The dull thud made my blood roar. Amara curled into a ball, sobbing, "I'm sorry. Please." But he didn't stop, punched her shoulders, face, head, over and over. Blood trickled from her mouth. Greg stayed seated, sipping wine like a statue. Deborah crossed her arms, face smug. Fiona raised her phone, filming, giggling. "This is gold, Mom and Dad. Let's keep it for laughs." No one stopped it. No one. I screamed in the car, the sound echoing in the confined space. The phone slipped to the floor, but the images burned into my brain. Rage erupted like a volcano. Throat burning, blood pounding in my skull. I floored the gas. The engine roared, tires screeching as I tore onto the rain-slick highway. Rain lashed the windshield like whips, but all I saw was my sister being tortured. Speedometer past 100 miles per hour. Blowing red lights, horn blaring, weaving through traffic like a madman. "Hold on, Amara. I'm coming." I growled, tears stinging, blurring the road. Fury and terror, terrified I'd be 1 second too late, that she'd stop breathing. One thought, kill them. I stormed into Tacoma like a hurricane, tires screeching on wet pavement. I didn't park. I skidded onto the curb, slammed the brakes. The Walker front door was ajar. Laughter still spilled from that damn dinner party. I charged. No knock. Kicked. The heavy wooden door opened. Hinges groaned like they'd snap. I burst into the dining room, the stench of food hitting me. The walkers jumped, wine glasses shattered. Zachary stood first, face ashen. "You! What the fuck?" I didn't speak. I lunged like a tiger, grabbed his collar, lifted him off the ground, slammed his back into the wall. Crash! A framed painting shattered. "You dare hit my sister!" I roared, face inches from his, breath hot. He choked, face turning purple. Let me go!" I punched, his nose cracked with a sickening snap, blood spraying the white wall. Fiona screamed, clawing at my arm. "You psycho! Let my brother go." I flung her back. She crashed into the table, dishes exploding. Greg stood, voice trembling but trying to sound authoritative. "Calm down. This is my house." I whirled, finger in his face. "You sat there while your son beat your daughter-in-law? You're an animal." Deborah covered her mouth, pale, backing into her chair. Don't do anything crazy." I hurled the evidence folder onto the table. Food splattered everywhere. "Look, I have it all. Church fund embezzlement, abuse of Lila, tonight's video. Everything. You're finished." Dead silence, only heavy breathing and soft sobbing from the corner. I rushed to Amara, curled on the floor, face swollen, bloody, eyes shut in pain. "Amara, it's me." I knelt, gently lifted her like a child. She opened her eyes weakly, crying, "Gunnar, don't make it worse, please." Her voice broke, but I shook my head, tears falling on her face. "No, it's over. I'm taking you out." I carried her out, ignoring the walker's pleas and Fiona's shrieks. Zachary lay crumpled, face a bloody mess. I didn't care. The door slammed behind me. I laid Amara in the back seat and sped to the hospital. The doctor's face darkened after the exam. Mild concussion from the fall, layered old and new bruises, clear strangulation marks, severe mental exhaustion, chronic PTSD, insomnia. "She needs close monitoring," he said. I nodded, stayed by her bed for days, wiping her face, spoon-feeding broth, whispering old stories to help her sleep. The walkers? Not one call. Not one visit. Like Amara never existed. When she was more lucid, I sat close, holding her hand. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." She hesitated, then broke into sobs, spilling it all. Total control. 24/7 phone tracking, banned from friends, beaten unconscious multiple times, nearly strangled to death, but silenced with threats. Her words cut like knives, my chest tightened, I could barely breathe. This wasn't family drama, this was systematic violence, enabled by the whole household. I held her, crying, "I'm sorry I let you suffer so long." I urged her to testify. She refused at first, terrified. "I can't." But night after night I spoke of freedom, of a future without fear. Finally she nodded, voice stronger. "Okay, Gunnar. I'll do it. For me. And for the others." The fight was nearing its end. "Amara, I swear, this time it's forever." The next morning, while Amara lay in her hospital bed, breathing evenly in exhausted sleep, I called the lawyer. I chose Elena Vargas, a Seattle attorney specializing in domestic violence cases recommended by Jack. I met her in a small but tidy office, stacks of files towering on the desk, the heavy scent of coffee in the air. "I have proof against the Walker family," I said, voice steady, and spread everything across the table. Jack's reports, the assault videos, Lila's statement, Amara's medical records, and the church fund embezzlement documents. Elena reviewed them, eyes lighting with cold professionalism. "Gunnar, this is the turning point. Everything changes from here. We can flip the board." We spent hours perfecting the case, adding Amara's detailed testimony, coordinating with Lila, preparing the complaint. By day's end, we filed with the Tacoma police, launching an official investigation. I stared at the confirmation sheet, heart pounding. Time for the Walkers to pay. News of the case spread through the local community like a wildfire. It started as whispers on neighborhood forums, then small articles in the Tacoma News Tribune. It engineer's wife accuses abuse tied to prominent church family. I knew the Walkers wouldn't sit idle. They immediately deployed manure, hiring top lawyers, calling newspaper editors, even pressuring police to clear up the misunderstanding. Jack phoned. They're trying to muzzle the press. A reporter I know was threatened with termination if he kept digging. Rage boiled inside me, but Elena calmed me. The harder they push, the more their tails show. We have ironclad evidence. At the same time, they launched vicious smear campaigns. On local social media, anonymous accounts spread lies. Amara was mentally unstable, self-harming for attention, slandering her husband out of jealousy. She's a preschool teacher but psychologically unfit, one post claimed. I was painted as a marriage wrecker, envious of the Walkers' wealth, exaggerating everything for profit. Her brother's a bodyguard, but just a troublemaker, a comment read. The rumors spread like a virus. Even co-workers at the security firm gave me odd looks, asking, "Why do the papers say you're jealous of your sister's in-laws?" I forced a smile, but it cut deep. How could people be so cruel? Amara saw the posts and cried, "Gunnar, they say I'm crazy, am I?" I held her. "No, you're the victim. We'll prove it." The lies reached my parents. One evening, while I sat with Amara in the hospital, my phone rang. Mom. Her voice panicked. "Gunnar, what are you doing?" Relatives keep calling, saying Amara's lying, that you're ruining someone's family. Stop it. Avoid the scandal. Dad cut in. "Son, the Walkers are powerful. What if they retaliate? Amara's just sensitive. Couples fight." Blood rushed to my head. I argued fiercely. "You're still the same. Your daughter nearly died and you're worried about gossip? The rumors are lies. I have proof. Why don't you believe me?" Mom sobbed. "I'm scared. The neighbors are talking." I hung up, hands shaking, realizing I could no longer rely on them. The more isolated we became, the harder I fought to protect Amara. From now on, it was just us. Me and Amara, Elena, Jack, and Lila. I hugged her tighter. "We'll win, sis." After weeks of intense investigation and preparation, the trial officially began at the Tacoma courthouse, drawing local media attention due to the Walkers' prominence. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, curious residents, even a few from St. Mary's. I sat beside Amara. She trembled in simple clothes, gripping my hand. Elena sat nearby, thick files ready. Across the aisle, the Walkers' lawyer, a tall man in glasses, shrill voice, kept objecting, trying to derail by attacking Amara's character. "Ms. Maddox has a history of mental instability, self-inflicted injuries," he claimed, presenting fake evidence from the rumors. "No direct proof ties my client to the injuries. This is just a family misunderstanding." Zachary sat pale but feigning politeness. Fiona glared at us with contempt. I stayed silent, squeezing Amara's hand, waiting our turn. My heart pounded like before a fight. When our side began, Elena stood, voice calm but razor sharp. All evidence was presented clearly, irrefutably. First, Lila, Zachary's former mistress, took the stand, voice shaky but firm. "He beat me repeatedly, nearly choked me to death. Exactly like Amara." The room buzzed. Then the hidden camera videos, the dinner party assault, Amara scalded with food, beaten in front of everyone. Gasps filled the air, some women covered their mouths. Next, the church financial reports proving Greg and Deborah embezzled funds to cover their son's crimes. Then Amara's medical records, concussion, layered bruises, strangulation marks, severe mental trauma. Elena concluded, "This is not a misunderstanding. This is systematic crime." Amara stood too, trembling, voice choked with tears, recounting everything. "My husband abused me repeatedly, controlled every aspect of my life. His parents watched and did nothing. Fiona filmed it, laughing. I nearly died." She cried, but her words were clear, authentic. The courtroom reeled, judge frowning, jurors whispering, reporters scribbling furiously. Zachary hung his head. Deborah covered her face. Greg flushed red. The air grew heavy as the walker's facade crumbled completely. After tense deliberation, the verdict rang out. Zachary sentenced to 6 years for assault and battery with a permanent no-contact order against Amara. Deborah faced embezzlement charges. Greg was fined for obstructing justice, both suspended from church duties and barred from leaving the state during investigation. The courtroom erupted. Some clapped. Reporters rushed for photos. Zachary was cuffed and led away, face twisted. Fiona wailed behind him. Stepping out of the courthouse into the Tacoma afternoon sun, Amara and I felt relief for the first time in months. She hugged me, crying, "Thank you, Gunner. It's over." I stroked her hair. "Yeah, it's over. We're free." The walker's shadow no longer loomed. We walked slowly, hand in hand, like when we were kids. But I knew the journey wasn't fully over. Therapy, a new life lay ahead. Yet now, we had won. After the trial, local media ignited like a spark to dry tinder, relentlessly digging into Zachary's past. Outlets like the Tacoma News-Tribune and Seattle Times ran in-depth series, unearthing details long buried beneath the walker's veneer of influence. They interviewed anonymous sources, combed through old records, and then, former victims once silenced, began stepping forward with courage. A former co-worker of Zachary's recounted how he harassed her at the office, forcing her to quit out of fear of retaliation. Another victim from the 2018 lawsuit filed a new civil suit, accusing him of stalking and threats. His rap sheet thickened daily. Physical abuse, psychological torment with fresh evidence from old emails, threatening texts, and statements from friends. I read the reports with mixed emotions, elated that justice was unfolding, but gutted by how many women had suffered like Amara. Each article was a blade slicing through chains, freeing long-buried secrets. The press branded him the monster behind the polite mask, and I thought, finally the world sees. The walker's reputation plummeted like a tower in freefall. Local organizations, government agencies, and the church launched internal audits, excavating everything tied to Greg and Deborah, Zachary's parents. St. Mary's Cathedral, once their pillar, held an emergency meeting and scrutinized charity ledgers. The findings: rampant misconduct, fake invoices, irregular transfers. Greg was forced to resign immediately, face ashen before the board, muttering hollow apologies. Deborah was suspended from all church activities, barred from events, and faced criminal embezzlement charges. Other charities severed ties. The Washington State Tax Authority opened a separate probe. Fiona, the spoiled little sister, was exposed in articles about her lavish lifestyle funded by stolen donations, prompting her to scrub all social media. Those who once revered the walkers now turned away completely, whispering about them in local coffee shops, viewing them as symbols of moral rot beneath years of polished pretense. They were fake from the start, a neighbor told a reporter. I followed the news with a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. Satisfaction for justice, sorrow for all who'd been deceived. Meanwhile, I spent most of my time taking Amara to therapy, starting with short sessions to help her escape PTSD and the fear of control. We chose a Seattle center with Dr. Elena Ramirez, a gentle but resolute middle-aged woman. In the first session, Amara sat hunched in the chair, hands trembling as she described nightmares. Zachary chasing her, Deborah hurling scalding food. Dr. Ramirez taught her deep breathing. In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8, and encouraged journaling to release emotions. I waited outside, heart twisting at the sound of her muffled sobs through the door. In later sessions, she improved, learning to recognize panic triggers like racing heart or cold hands and countering them with relaxation exercises. I drove her 3 times a week, stopping for ice cream on the way home to lift her spirits. "Gunner, today I said more," she told me once, a faint smile breaking through. I hugged her. "I'm so proud of you." Therapy wasn't easy. Some nights she couldn't sleep, calling me in tears. "I'm scared he'll come back." I'd sleep on the couch outside her room, whispering comfort until she drifted off. Gradually, she flinched less, stopped glancing over her shoulder in public. Small steps, but to me they were her rising from ashes. I rented a modest apartment in a different city, far from Tacoma and the Walkers, where no one could find us. We chose Bellingham, a quiet bayside town with green forests and calm waters. The place was simple. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a balcony overlooking a lake. I moved us in over a weekend. Amara sat watching as I unpacked books and old photos. "Gunnar, it's beautiful here," she said, eyes lighting up for the first time. We left Tacoma locked behind us. Only Jack and Elena knew the new address. Here, no trace of the Walkers, just morning birdsong and salty sea breeze. Amara began relearning how to live. Morning walks by the lake, breathing fresh air, following online yoga videos to reclaim the peace she thought was lost forever. She journaled nightly, jotting small thoughts. "Today I smiled at blooming flowers." Or, "I'm not afraid when the door opens." I watched her transform, skin glowing again, eyes less shadowed. In the afternoons we cooked together, laughing over childhood stories, like the time she skipped school and I covered for her. Life was new, simple, but brimming with hope. A week after settling in, Gage and Mary, our parents, tracked me down, likely through the old address or a colleague. They knocked on the Bellingham door, faces gaunt, eyes red. Mom burst into tears the moment she saw me. "Gunnar, I'm sorry." I stayed silent, let Amara nearly die in a marriage I thought was fine. We were wrong. Dad stood behind, voice shaking. "Son, I feared gossip, but now I regret it. Please forgive us." They hugged and wept, recounting sleepless nights after reading the news, relatives calling to blame them for failing to protect their daughter. I listened, heart conflicted. Anger lingered, but I pitied them, 2 old people trapped in fear. Yet I couldn't forget how their silence had pushed Amara to the edge. "Mom, Dad," I said gently, voice steady. "I don't need late apologies. Amara is healing and we need space. Let us handle this." I politely saw them out, closed the door, heart heavy but resolute. From then on I limited contact, short texts about Amara's health only. I understood some distances can't be bridged, especially when their silence nearly cost her life. They were our parents, but now I was Amara's true family. Time passed, slowly, surely. Amara smiled more, cared for herself, and began teaching at a nearby community center, a sign she was reclaiming her life. She cooked, shopped alone, even signed up for group yoga to make friends. The scars on her skin faded, the wounds inside took longer. Some nights she still cried, haunted by the past, but now she'd call me, "Gunnar, I'm doing better." I watched her evolve, from a terrified, huddled girl into a resilient woman, step by step. We walked the shore. She spoke of dreams to open her own classroom. I was proud but cautious. This new life was fragile, needing protection. Seeing my sister rise piece by piece, I knew the storm had passed. From here, we siblings would write our own future, one free of the Walker's shadow. We sat on the balcony at sunset, her head on my shoulder. "Gunnar, thank you for never giving up." I smiled. "You're my sister. We're forever." A new life had begun, full of hope and light, but I stayed vigilant. The fight might not be over. Now we were stronger than ever. Amara's story, my sister's, stands as a vivid testament to the truth that domestic violence doesn't only lurk in impoverished homes where scarcity and stress pile up. Sometimes it hides cunningly behind opulent walls, behind families that seem perfect and wield influence in the community. I recall the Walkers' lavish suburban home, crystal chandeliers, sparkling manicured lawns, cheerful dinner parties, but behind it all was hell. Amara, a gentle preschool teacher, was beaten in the very house others envied. I once thought violence only struck in places lacking education or wealth, but through my sister I learned it can seep anywhere, as long as there's cover and indifference. Families like the Walkers, with church standing and wide connections, used that polished facade to conceal crimes. Her story haunts me. How many other victims are silently enduring behind closed doors, fearing judgment or the loss of a perfect image? It taught me never to judge by appearances. Hell can hide beneath the glossiest paint. The silence of those around us, from blood parents, neighbors, to the community, can kill more slowly than fists. That indifference pushed Amara to the brink of death. I'm still haunted by her trembling phone calls. Voice evasive, yet no one near the Walkers spoke up. Neighbors saw bruises but looked away, thinking someone else's business. My own parents, flesh and blood, chose silence for fear of gossip, letting my sister nearly die in isolation. I remember the night she fled to my place in the rain, body shaking. If not for me, she might not have survived. That silence is a slow blade, cutting hope, making victims feel alone, unworthy of rescue. On this journey, I learned indifference isn't harmless, it's complicity feeding evil. If just one person, a neighbor hearing cries, a friend spotting signs, had spoken, Amara might have been saved sooner. It makes me reflect. In society, we often choose silence to keep the peace, but that peace is illusion, and the cost is someone's life. I realized family isn't always blood. It's those who stand to protect you when everyone turns away. I once thought family meant parents, shared lineage, but this ordeal showed me clearer than ever. My parents, loving in their way, chose reputation over their daughter. They called scolding me when rumors spread, more worried about neighbors' chatter than the bruises on Amara's face. Yet I, not her parent, became her sole anchor, gathering evidence, facing court, holding her through endless tears. Jack the investigator, Elena the lawyer, even Lila. Strangers became family because they stood with us. I remember Amara hugging me after court, whispering, "You're my family." It taught me true family is action, not blood. In life, when lineage fails, love and courage forge stronger bonds. Now watching Amara smile in Bellingham, I know family is who stays in the storm, not who runs. Rescuing Amara proved justice doesn't come on its own. Sometimes someone must dare unearth truth, collect proof, and endure society's judgment to reclaim fairness. I once lay helpless on the couch, staring at the ceiling, but then hired the investigator, dug records, faced smears. Every step was hard, labeled home wrecker, scolded by parents, fearing Walker retaliation. But if I'd stopped, Amara would remain trapped. This story reminds me, justice is a fight, not a gift from above. It demands courage, like Lila testifying despite fear, or Amara speaking through tears. In society, many stay silent to avoid judgment, but those who dig, like me scouring online files, tracking videos, change everything. I think of sleepless nights organizing evidence, terrified yet resolute. The lesson: don't wait for others. If you see wrong, be the first to shine light. Amara learned survival isn't weakness. It's the strength of the wounded who keep walking, seeking therapy, reclaiming their life. She once huddled in the hospital, thinking herself frail for not leaving sooner, but through therapy, she saw survival as victory. In sessions with Dr. Ramirez, she learned deep breathing, journaling, facing fears. "Gunnar, surviving is strength," she said once, eyes bright. The Walker's collapse warns that reputation can't shield evil forever. Truth may be suppressed for years, but no one can extinguish it indefinitely. They were church pillars, revered, using money to silence victims. But when evidence surfaced, everything fell. Greg resigned, Deborah suspended, Zachary imprisoned. I followed the press, digging deeper, thinking, reputation is thin paint, easily peeled by truth. It taught me evil, however cleverly hidden, will be exposed if someone dares dig. The Walkers concealed for years, but one video chain, one testimony turned it all. Lesson: don't fear power. Truth is the strongest weapon, and time sides with the persistent. I understood protecting those you love sometimes means accepting misunderstanding, attack, even betrayal by blood. But I still chose the right side. I was called Wrecker. Scolded by parents, hit by rumors, jealous of wealth. Colleagues stared, friends distanced. But I chose Amara. Despite isolation, I realized real love is action, accepting pain to save another. When she smiles in Bellingham, I know my choice was right. Lesson: don't fear misunderstanding. Standing for right brings freedom. A message to those suffering abuse: leaving isn't giving up, it's saving your life, and you're not alone. One person standing with you can change everything. Amara once thought staying was enduring for marriage, but choosing to leave saved her life and future. Remember, you're not alone. A sibling, friend, hotline can shift it all. Reach out. Life beyond waits.